I'm Jemiarth, and today we're going to be talking about my entire exhibition of SOZO, and we're going to walk through each piece like an artist tour, and I will be talking about every single artwork in detail. My name is Jemiarth. I was born in 2006 in Hong Kong into a Christian family, and I was really blessed to grow up in church and in different communities of faith. But I truly met God when I was in middle school to high school, when I felt my lowest in my mental health, and I realized that I truly needed God in my life. I decided to pursue Him by myself. On my own journey, I did devotions, and I just discovered the Word of God and how beautiful and truly transformative it is to see His word in action in my life. I decided to recommit to the faith in my last years of high school. During 2024, I decided to proclaim my faith to the world and publicly declare my love for Jesus through baptism in Island ECC. And I went on my first mission trip to Chiang Mai, and that was also really life-changing as I got to witness His true transformative love and healing. In 2025, I got admitted to the Polytechnic University of Hong Kong as I study communication design in my second year today. I decided to pursue design as I wanted to learn more about how design and art can interchange and to interact with each other, to not only showcase through advertisement but also through His design of the world. In 2025 May, I submitted my artworks to the top 100 emerging artists of the Women's Art Edition from the Arts to Hearts project. I was selected as the top 100 emerging women's artists of the world, and I'm really blessed to have this opportunity to showcase my artworks in a solo exhibition for the first time in my life. I'm turning 19 very soon, and I'm very excited to share this journey with you all. So a lot of you might not know, but this exhibition was actually founded by my dear friend Paris. Paris Chung is a full-time missionary in YWAM Gateway, which is Youth with a Mission in Hong Kong, and she actually had a vision from God to create this exhibit of artworks that showcase a theme of heaven. 2024 in October, she reached out to me and she felt the calling of God saying that, oh, you should collaborate with AJ on this art exhibition. And I was a bit drawn back because I was actually having an 8-month burnout and I couldn't create out of any joy. I couldn't have any inspiration, and I didn't know how to feel with my artworks. So I was actually really skeptical at first, but then through prayer and petition and a lot of other encouragements, I decided to take on this journey with Paris, and we decided to have our first meeting in 2024 of December. And we wanted this exhibition to be in December, actually, celebrating the reason for the season. We decided to collaborate, and we found Body Arts, which is this amazing Christian venue, which provides this amazing feeling and atmosphere and just place for us to display our works that will show and point others towards Jesus. This exhibition is divided into 5 stations, 5 chapters. First station being brokenness. The brokenness station exhibits around 5 works which showcase a journey of how low my mental state dropped and how I was feeling, and the rawness and the vulnerableness that I exhibited through my artworks, that probably my parents or people around me were a bit concerned because they didn't know what was going on. But it was real because it was shown through my art. I'm a firm believer that our art reflects how we feel and how our state of mind is. So brokenness was my state of mind a few years ago. And the second station is encounterment. So in encounterment station, there's around roughly 4 to 5 paintings that showcase how one person really encounters that light of God and how that really causes them to be curious and to change for the better. The station of action depicts a few paintings which showcase a person taking action into their faith and having that heart to change change and having that willingness to see a better version of themselves. The fourth station is healing, which is very fitting to our exhibition, The Art of Healing. The fourth station depicts 4 to 5 paintings which talk about the pursuit and the road of healing. How the road of healing is not necessarily easy or very smooth sailing, but it is something that is really hard but beautiful at the same time. The fifth station, the final station, is wholeness. So wholeness depicts around 6 paintings full of vibrant colors and just complete wholeness. And it's almost the final path towards healing. As you can see, we decided to call these 5 stations as it goes circular. So it is never ending, it is always changing. So even when sometimes you feel like you've reached wholeness, you might go back to brokenness. And through that brokenness, you might go back to encounterment. With encounterment, you might go back to action. With action, you will go back to healing. Healing ultimately leads towards wholeness. I believe that healing is really just never ending. I don't think we'll ever be completely healed until we truly see God and we truly meet Him face to face. I feel like healing is a motion where we just continue to reach out to. Healing is always with us whenever we scratch ourselves and put on a band-aid, or whenever we just try to see the better side of things on a dark and gloomy day. Healing is just always with us and always present. So I believe that healing is something we always have to pursue because it is one of the most beautiful and powerful things on this earth. What makes it more powerful is God's healing. Let's go on to the start of the tour. There's a whole window at the back, so the lighting might feel a little bit different, but this is the first painting of the first station, Brokenness. I named this piece Restoration. For me as an artist, I have a tradition to paint a painting every year for my birthday, and I was born Christmas Eve, so it's a bit hectic when I do have to do that painting. I do a self-portrait each year. This is a painting I did in 2022. The medium is acrylic on canvas, and it is around 50 times 40 centimeters. This painting was inspired by Psalm 23. I think I was still going through a pretty rough mental state at that time, so when I painted it, it felt very liberating. I felt like I was painting myself in a sea amidst the calmness and that still waters that He promised to put me in, and I just really wanted Him to melt away all the darkness inside of me, hence the really dark swirls of waters here. And you could see that I wanted to depict Him with that gold swirls to almost like kind of wash me clean. I was still going through a bit of an emotional wreck from maybe friendship breakups and even just relationship issues, but this is one of my self-portraits as a 15-year-old. Moving on to the second painting of this station. This is called Where's My Heart, and it was made in 2023, charcoal on paper, and it's 58 times 47 centimeters. This was a piece where I made very free flowy-ish. I remember making it on a summer night, and it was on floor, quite dark of a music playing, and I just felt really overwhelmed in a sense. I used an image and reference of me in the sand, in the waters on the beach, and I just really wanted to disappear with the ocean because I actually really enjoy spending time alone in the waters, in the ocean, and I just didn't want to appear. I just wanted to disappear in the waves. So this was a title, a painting named after my feelings of finding my place and finding my heart in this very wave crashing kind of world. Moving on to the third painting actually. The third painting here is a bit off-putting. This is called Paint into Passion. It was made in 2023. The medium is pencil and marker on paper. I was creating this remembering with tears in my eyes because I didn't know what to do with my passion. I didn't know what to do with my identity. I didn't know how I could pursue it. And as you can see in this artwork, it actually has 2 tears coming out and transforming into something almost like a weaving cobweb. And I didn't know what to do with my emotions. I didn't know how to transform them into something that was tangible. So all I knew was to put it in art. So this is the 4th painting of this Brokenness station. This painting is called Acceptance or Rejection. It is made in 2023. and it is acrylic on canvas. Size is 50 times 38 centimeters. This painting was honestly quite technical. It was a very technical painting, if you could see up close. To achieve this kind of effect with acrylic is very difficult. And I actually prided myself over creating this artwork in such a short time. As you know, I'm actually a really fast painter, so a lot of these artworks were probably made within a day or two. This acceptance or rejection was a very raw and vulnerable time in my life, where I was in the midst of between healing and staying in that hole. And I was very doubtful because I wanted to stay in that hole. I depicted myself holding this type of light in my hands with my face sort of nonchalant to its brightness, to its warmth. Different emotions and faces depicting whether I should accept it or whether I should reject it or not. And I remember finishing this artwork and scaring my parents a little bit. And my mom was asking me, oh, what's the title of this work? And I said that it was Acceptance or Rejection of Healing. And she asked me this question. She was like, why wouldn't anyone want to accept healing? And I replied saying, well, maybe someone is just too used to the pain and too used to that suffering that healing just felt really off to them. Healing just felt painful and really unfamiliar to them. That's what I wanted to depict. Moving on to the fifth artwork of this station. This is called Take a Fall. It was made in 2024. The medium is ceramics on acrylic wooden panel, and it is 53 times 43 centimeters. This painting was really, really difficult to make. I have mentioned that it was the most technical piece of this entire exhibition because of my first time using ceramics and also first time using wooden panels for the canvas. It was definitely a challenge because I was also quite unfamiliar with not only the medium, but how I wanted to depict the story. I remember doing this in my high school art class actually, and the teacher was asking us to create a narrative story. I was on the theme of change. So I wanted to create a change of narrative for one of my favorite mythological stories in Greek mythology, which was the story of Icarus. So for those of you who don't know, Icarus was a story of Daedalus, which was a very famous Greek inventor back in the days. And he wanted to escape. So Daedalus actually created him a pair of wax wings. This pair of wax wings were very delicate because it couldn't be flown too close to the sun, otherwise it would melt, and it couldn't be too close to the sea, otherwise it would also wear off. The story of Icarus was that he did not listen and he let his pride take over. Icarus decided to fly near the sun, and his wings eventually burned off and he perished because he did not listen. I imagine that Icarus, when he was falling, he probably called on Zeus, the lord of the skies. He probably called on Apollos, the Greek god of the sun. He probably called on Poseidon, the Greek god of the sea, to save him. Yet at the end, he still perished. So my theme was change of narrative. And as a Christian girly, I gotta change the narrative to something faith-based. So I decided to change it to, what if Icarus called on Jehovah? What if he called on the one true God, the God of all things, not just the God of one thing? When he took a fall, there was a change. Something actually happened, and that was up for interpretation. But this lighting that the venue did was absolutely immaculate. It captured the whole essence and the shadows, and it's just so beautiful. We are now in the second stage, which is Encounterment. This painting was actually supposed to be in the stage of healing, but we decided that it felt right to put it in Encounterment, as it was sort of encountering the work of the Lord and seeing how it could actually be mending towards our lives. This piece is called Stitch by Stitch. It was made in 2023. It is a mixed media on canvas. The dimensions are 50 times 38 centimeters, excluding the things that are sticking out on the top. I was in a phase in my art life where I was really into extending beyond the canvas, and I found that it was really exciting and really fun to do so. And what better way than to extend it with wings. I really do love painting wings, so a lot of elements in my art you can also see a pair of wings, even in my signature. This piece was made for my first AP artwork, I believe, and my AP art theme was actually the War to Heal. I was already touching on concepts of healing with artworks, and it was very big foreshadowing to this whole exhibition actually. 3D cutout of me stitching myself back together with the blood of Jesus that is flowing through. This was inspired by a chapter in Leviticus where it says that the life of a creature is in the blood. And I felt really inspired by that. I wanted to depict how blood is actually truly one thing that makes us all equal in a sense, where no matter any race or any religion, we still bleed the same red. And I wanted to explore that concept. I believe we all have a pair of wings. Only some of us might need mending for it. Some of us might need to heal those pair of wings before we can soar again. So I was in the process of healing, but I was still a bit touchy about that. Yet I decided to create this visual of myself, stitching myself back up, but not just by my own strength, but by His provision. Because I created this in 2023, this has actually been through a lot, and this painting became very tattered. Before the exhibition started, I had to use clay to just stitch it back up and literally mend the broken pieces and create a thicker texture so that it became more, it becomes more solid instead of just a piece of paper hanging on. The second piece of this station is called Dear Heavenly Father. I'm from Hong Kong. I was born and raised, so my parents and I naturally speak Cantonese or even Mandarin sometimes. As I said, because I was raised in a Christian family, we always pray at night, and my parents would always use this phrase, "Tan Ngoi Tien Fu," and it simply translates to Dear Heavenly Father. It was very powerful to me because no matter how short or how long the prayer, we would always start it off with Tan Ngoi Tien Fu, and I would always find a little inspiration from those types of sentences or just the little things in life where I would just notice and I would be like, oh, I see this visual imagery in my head and I would love to create it out. So this was actually laser cut it, and it was done this year. It was done in 2025. It is mixed media plus 3D laser cutout off on an oil canvas. It is 50 times 40 centimeters for one, so times two. This piece was created around my burnout season, and I did not really find joy in creating because I had lacked the motivation and the intentionality to create. But it was one that I pushed through over the many months. And this piece has a lot of different elements. It has the background of my Chiang Mai mission trip and the lake that I saw. It's very hidden, but it's there. These two subjects are actually my baby photos, and I was reading the Bible here, and my mom actually captured that, so I definitely wanted to add that in there, especially for a prayer painting like this. This was actually a picture with my dad, but I cut off my dad because I just wanted my portrait in there, and it was very fitting because my dad was here, supposedly, and this piece was called Dear Heavenly Father, so kind of fitting. And this fabric you see here was actually cut out from my high school graduation dress, which I collaborated with another artist in Hong Kong. This is just a very meaningful piece to me and just speaks much volume than just the naked eye could see. Moving on to the third piece of this station encounterment. This piece is called Rescuer. It was made in 2022. It is acrylic on canvas, and it is 50 times 60 centimeters. I remember creating this piece around the morning of my COVID school period, and I remember the night before I was dreaming and God was like, oh, can you paint me a painting? And I'm like, oh, obviously. And I remember the next morning I was like, what better depiction of God than the mighty lion? So I painted this lion and I added the most famous markings of Christ, which is his crucifixion marks, and I wanted to almost show that he was rushing out of our dark and gloomy waters and the dark times in life that were overwhelming and drowning us. It was actually partly inspired by, even when I drown, my lifeguard walks on water, that phrase. Even when we were overwhelmed in that sea of just emotions and sea of doubt, he was our lifeguard, he is our lifeguard, and he just surges out of the waters to come and get us. Moving on to the fourth piece of the station, which is called Not My Time But His. It is made in 2025 this year, acrylic on canvas, 91 times 30 centimeters. This piece, I think some of you might recognize the most. It was a piece that really launched my art career on Instagram, and it was a piece where I depicted the burden of change because I was not used to change and I do not handle change very well. So moving on from high school was a really big change in my life. It's definitely difficult to let go. I was also dealing with time very badly, and I wanted to combine those two concepts and put them in one painting. And one of my friends actually recorded this video of me constantly looking back during my high school graduation. And I took a screenshot of that and I was like, very fire art reference. So this piece depicted a lot of people around me all had their set times. They were all moving on different clocks and I didn't know where my clock was. And I realized that it wasn't about what other people's timing was, but what God's timing was for me. As I said, I use red to represent God in a lot of my artworks, and I used red to represent him as the tassel of letting go and just surrendering my time. So it wasn't my time, but it was his time. Numbers on the chairs actually spell out his time. So it's HISTIME here. Very tiny details there. To the fifth piece of this station, this is called More Than Close, and it is made in 2025. The medium is acrylic on canvas and the size is 89 centimeters times 58 centimeters. So this artwork was inspired by how I felt really far from God and I didn't know where he was in my life. I just felt really distant from him. Even when I was doing my Bible every day, praying regularly, I just still felt like he wasn't there. He wasn't as close as he was to me during the spiritual highs. I gotta mention first, I take all my own references, no AI absolutely was used in any of my artworks. Every single artwork was based on an image I took or my friends took of me. And so this was an image I took of my auntie. She helped me pose in this position and I just saw this light almost like hugging her. So I wanted to depict that even when we're super far, when we feel like we can't grasp God immediately, when God just feels super high up like this cross, he's actually already came down and just given us the biggest hug, even if we can't feel it, even if we don't know it yet, but he's already closer than we already think. And I like to be really intentional with my artwork details, so I always include some elements of 7, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 right here to show that there are 7 beams of light just always with us, and just the promise of God's work and God's love in our lives is always right in our hearts. This is the last piece of the station encounterment. It is called The Motion. I created this in 2025. It is acrylic on canvas and the dimensions are 40 times 50 centimeters. This was a piece I created overseas, so we actually got this stretched and framed by ourselves and my dad. Shout out Dad. This piece was called The Motion because I felt like I was in a stage of life where every day just felt the same. So I used these stripes to actually symbolize that, to feel repetitive and very stagnant in not only my faith, but I guess in my life as well. And I wanted to remind myself that the only motion in my life I truly need is him. And I used this curved line that hooks right back, so it's not just going away, but it comes back to you, always circling around you. And to use, as I said, red to represent God, and using that red curve to represent how he's always just there as my motion. As to make it more relatable to some of you guys, I blurred out my face, always reminding me of his truths. And I also got a compliment saying that out of all the artworks here that depict me, this was the most me in an artwork. This artwork here is the longest artwork it took for me to finish. This is the first painting of the station, Action, and it is called The Deck of Dawns, and it was created from 2023 to 2025. This is a mixed media on playing cards. It is 8.5 times 6 centimeters times 52 of them, as in a playing stack of cards. And I decided to use colors to represent each suit to show my progress of healing. The first suit being blue/purple. The second suit represents red, which is anger and almost bitterness and resentment. The third suit is green, which represents that renewal and that feeling of restoration. The last suit, yellow, and the diamonds represent heaven's treasures, which was something that we don't have yet, but we are storing up in the future. I won't go into detail for every single piece of artwork here, as there's just too much to go through. I can give you some insight on the details which were created through this piece. You can see there's actually a party hat here, a mini party hat, which was actually cut out from a real big party hat, and I even added the string of the party hat in. Some of these are actually stitched through, so there's actual stitchings into the card. This is actually a door which opens into gold, and this was the last playing card that I finished, which depicted Jesus as king. So as you can see, each suit actually depicts a form of Jesus. The first suit depicts Jesus as the slain lamb. The second suit depicts him as the roaring lion. The third depicts him as the eagle, which is holding on to a chain of treasures. Last suit depicts him as a loving shepherd. And you can see, actually, someone mentioned this to me, that each suit actually foreshadows what the next color would be. Blue and purple suit actually has hints of gold and hints of red at the end, which foreshadowed my red suit. And my red suit has a little bit touches of green, which also foreshadowed my green suit. My green suit has an immense amount of gold, which foreshadowed my ultimate gold suit. And one thing that was special that some person mentioned was that every single suit has bits of gold, which ultimately foreshadowed my last suit, which was really special to me, as it didn't even occur to me when I was creating this. So it was really, really amazing. Here we have our second painting of the station, which is a diptych, and it's called Healing's Best. I created this year as well in 2025, and it is acrylic on 2 canvases, which is 15 times 15 centimeters per one. This piece was actually inspired by me actually hurting myself while holding some roses, and my hands were pricked and I had to put on band-aids, and I was like, what if band-aids became crosses? Because band-aids also directly correlate to the journey of healing. And when you put on a band-aid, you want it to get well. You want it to form a scab. You want yourself to not pick on that scab, and you want yourself to have the wound completely mended. So that is why I decided to create a fitting theme for it as band-aids to crosses, and I realized that Jesus was our best healer, in fact, not just for any physical wounds, but also for emotional wounds. I decided to do the placement of the band-aids on the wrist, heart area. I realized that it was a really simple but effective depiction of how I saw healing and how I saw Jesus as my healer. Moving on to the third piece of the station, this piece is called Continue In/On Changing. It's actually my first ever oil on canvas painting, and I was really nervous to paint this. As I said, every artist goes through a blue period. This was also one of my blue periods, even though you don't see any blue in it. It's because I covered the entire thing. So I was in a phase where I decided that blue was the only thing that connected me to my art, and that if I didn't use blue in my artworks, it wasn't my artwork. And my teacher encouraged me to change the narrative. I actually did a complete acrylic blue wash over this painting, and then used oil, such as these colors, to create that effect. Oh, I've conquered that blue period, and I'm starting to change for myself as an artist as well. This piece was a depiction of also how I felt like everyone in my life was moving, was doing something. I depicted myself as a black and white static motion here, static subject here, that was just looking upwards. I didn't know what to do, and I didn't know how to continue when I was stuck and when everyone else was moving. So I also used, as usual, red to depict the force that was always there actually throughout my life and throughout the other people's life actually, that was guiding them, urging them to continue on and to continue in changing. It was one of my pieces where I first interacted with my church fellowship and asked them to pose for me. It was a very fun experience, and yeah, I just really enjoyed taking my own references. This was one of the paintings that I also submitted to the top 100 emerging artists in the Arts to Hearts project, and it was also the painting that they selected to be in one of the featured pages of their book. This painting is called The Touch That Saves, created this year, 2025. The medium is mixed media on canvas, mainly gold foil and acrylic, and the dimensions are 78 times 40 centimeters. This piece was actually a dream I had, a vision so-called. I was on the plane back from Canada to Hong Kong, and I was about to sleep, and God showed me this image and told me to paint it, and I was like, okay, God, when I'm back in Hong Kong, I'll do it. And he didn't let me sleep till I actually sketched it out, sketched a rough draft on Snapchat memories. And I was like, okay, will you let me sleep afterwards? He was like, sketch it. And then I did fall asleep right after. So this was a very cutesy God and daughter moment of this painting. Once I landed in Hong Kong, when I rested, I began painting this painting. It was actually a continuation of the very famous creation of Adam by Michelangelo, where he created this really famous painting of man and God trying to reach each other. If you notice this piece, hand of man and the hand of God never touch. So I reimagined this to the hand of God and the hand of man actually touching and the fingertips actually making contact. And I think that perfectly depicts how Jesus' salvation pulled humanity straight back to God, that it made it accessible because of his work on the cross, his blood flowing through his pierced hands into something so gold, so treasured, and so real that we can actually hold on to, that now we have full access to Christ. It felt really real to me and felt very urgent for me to depict this painting. I love to use subtle references to God, and you can see the cross here misusing actually gold foil. So I ended up sneezing gold for the next week after painting this. Now that I'm filming these videos, I realize how small I am compared to my artworks. This piece is called Faith Over Fear. It was done 2 years ago in 2023. It is mixed media on canvas, mainly acrylic, gold foil, and cutout mirrors. It is 78 times 60 centimeters. This piece was inspired by my experience of letting go and surrendering. When I finished this piece, I remember I did not like it. I was not satisfied with myself, because usually when I finish a painting, I'm very overjoyed. I'm really quite satisfied with the result. But this painting just did not give me any joy. It gave me a lot of doubt and misery, honestly, because I just couldn't find the joy in finishing this painting. And I didn't know what was wrong, because the technique was there. The blending, the color usage, it was almost perfect. But something was just lacking in this painting, and I just didn't know what. I nitpicked on this painting. I didn't want to sleep, I didn't want to eat until I figured what was wrong with this whole idea. And at the end, I still don't really know. I guess at the end, I accepted the fact that maybe some paintings I wouldn't just be completely happy with, but this artwork taught me that I would rather surrender it to God than just nitpick it myself and pick it raw till it becomes a mess. And I just left it at that, and I just gave it to God and just let it be. But yeah, this actually was also one of the crowd's favorites, and they were very shocked by the fact that I didn't really enjoy painting this. But I really did enjoy my technical ability demonstrated here. And for an acrylic user, this is very hard to blend, and I'm still kind of shocked at how I did this. I put mirrors here to encapsulate the flow, as you could see the dynamic here. And I wanted people to also experience that faith over fear for themselves, to literally be interactive as they can see themselves directly in the mirror. This painting here is one of the last few paintings of this station encounterment. It is called Prosperity and Protection. It was created in 2022, mixed media on canvas, mainly illustration board and acrylic, and it is 81 times 55 centimeters. This was actually created for my mom's birthday. I create a painting for my mom every birthday that she has, and this was one of the paintings that I did for her. She was going through a time where she saw protection and the prosperity that God has promised, and that she held on to that, and she wanted me to create almost like a wave crashing over that the mercy of God just overwhelms her and that protection will always stay with her. It was also inspired by Psalm 91, which says that under his shadows we find refuge. Under the shadows of his wings we find refuge. That's why I decided to use illustration board cutouts to make this definitely more 3D than usual. Each piece of wings were directly cut out and painted and stuck on. If you go closer, you could actually see when the light hits, it creates a shadow, which ultimately represents how under the shadow of the wings of God, we will find refuge. So this is what I wanted to depict with this painting. This is prosperity and protection. Okay, we're gonna go here. We placed this piece on the corner of the whole exhibition because we wanted it to be a more humbling experience. If you wanted to see closely, you might have to kneel down, you might have to sit down just to see this piece. And it is very fitting because this piece is called Manger Throne. It was made this year, a month before the exhibition started. The piece is mixed media on a laser cutout piece of wood, and it is 78 times 60 centimeters. This was made as a collaborative art project by me and the other co-founder of this exhibition, Paris Cheng. And this was a depiction of Phil Wickham's song called Manger Throne. And it was inspired by the song lyric, "From heaven to the cradle, from cradle to the cross. Let heaven and angels sing, this is our King." And this was in the spirit of the coming season of Christmas, where we created the crown of thorns wrapped around the manger throne. 3 stripes here representing the Trinity, which is God, the Spirit, and the Son. And we wanted to depict a little bit of cracks through the wood to show that God's glory seriously cannot be contained, and that even in such a humbling birth story, that his glory just shines through everything. Here is the little manger with our Lamb of God. This was definitely pretty challenging to create. And yeah, this is Manger Throne. Moving on to the biggest piece of this exhibition. This piece is called Miracle. It was made this year in May 2025. It was also a collaborative art project done by me and Paris Cheng. And it is acrylic on a canvas cloth. And the dimensions are roughly 300 times 100 centimeters. So around 3 meters times 1.5 meters tall. This was one of the most insane projects I've taken on. It was definitely also quite challenging because I was on such a time crunch. If I had more time, I think I would have been less stressed about it. But this piece is a depiction of the bleeding woman, and we decided to depict the story because we believe that it was one of the most powerful stories of Jesus' healing ministry. It was talking about how this woman has bled for 12 years of her life. She was an outcast in society. They treated her as something dirty, something undesirable, just because of her disease. All the doctors treated her to no avail. This woman was at her wit's end. She had no other choice, and she bravely stepped out from her hiding place into the crowd that despised her, into the crowd that pushed her away. And she still insisted she wanted to see this Jesus. She wanted to experience this Jesus' type of healing. And she ultimately, in an act of faith, she reached out her hand and grabbed onto the hem of Jesus' robe, the end hem of Jesus' robe. She knew that this Jesus could heal her. This true act of faith didn't begin when she touched Jesus' robe. It began when she went out of her way to find Jesus. At the end, when she touched Jesus' robe, she was immediately healed, her bleeding was stopped, and at the same time, Jesus also felt that his healing power had gone out. Someone has touched me. The disciples were like, "What do you mean, Jesus? You're in a crowd, everyone's pushing you up against like sardines. What do you mean someone touched you? Everyone's touching you." And then Jesus said, "No, I felt someone touch me and my healing power was gone. Who touched me?" She came forward to him and knelt before him saying, "Lord, Master, it is I touched you. I wanted to be healed because I was bleeding for so long. I needed healing. I needed someone that could heal me." And Jesus didn't say, "Give me my power back. I need that for someone else. I'll deal with you later." He didn't say that. He acknowledged her and he said, "Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace." And this was a very significant moment in healing because it shows that Jesus doesn't just heal physically. By calling her daughter, by acknowledging her as his own, and by telling her that it was her faith that has healed her, it really shows that Jesus doesn't just heal physically, but Jesus also heals spiritually and emotionally. Perfect for SOZO, perfect for the art of healing. It's the centerpiece of this exhibition where we talk about healing. A lot of people also ask why we put Adidas shoes or why we put Nike shoes and modern shoes in this type of background context, because we wanted to show that miracles don't only happen 2,000 years ago. Miracles don't only happen in the Bible. It can happen today, it can happen in the modern world, and it can happen right now. So that is why we decided to keep this modern context amidst the really ancient story that we have right here. Piece was also referenced from my youth group, so everything was taken by us. This hand actually here was my collaborative partner, collaborative artist Paris's hand as a reference, and we painted this over the course of 1 week. I was on a really tight time crunch as I was going overseas for a few months, so this piece had to be done quick, and thank the Lord I paint quickly. And one fun fact about this piece is we were supposed to order cotton cloth for this canvas, but I think it came as linen cloth. So the difference between cotton and linen is that cotton goes on much smoother, like my other paintings are all on cotton canvases, but linen is really difficult to apply color and for the color to stay on nicely and smoothly. So you can see the texture is actually pretty raspy and pretty thick. So this was actually a really difficult task, but at the same time we noticed that linen was actually used back in Jesus' days as clothing, and we felt that it was actually pretty fitting. So this is the story of Miracle. We hope someone will take it home. We're already in the station of wholeness, and this piece right here is called Ambassador. It was created in 2025. Acrylic and alcoholic markers on canvas. It is 71 times 50 centimeters, and this was one of the paintings I did that got me out of art burnout actually. This is really not similar to any of my other paintings. This was definitely more free-flowy and very different. I was inspired by one of the phrases my best friend said to me, that let's go be ambassadors of Christ. And it really stuck to me because it was just quite a difficult year, quite a difficult art burnout to get out of. So I was very inspired by this and decided to paint ambassadors of Christ. So I saw this really warm light ray with streaks of light going out of that into the world, into all four corners of the world. And all the lights were little crosses. And I was like, oh, those are little representations of Christ, little ambassadors of Christ all around the world. And obviously the red element right here that slithers through the whole painting, I added a little self-portrait of myself through a mirror drawing. And this was actually a depiction of me understanding and acknowledging my use and my talent that God has given me through my hands. Fabrics and just little details encrusted into the entire thing. This was a canvas, and this painting was stuck onto the canvas. The canvas actually had ambassador spray painted on top of it, that background meaning and context, so I stuck ambassadors on top of it. Moving on to the last few paintings of this exhibition, this piece is called Every Season is Praise. It was created in 2025. It is oil and metal on canvas, and the size is 78 times 60 centimeters. So this piece was actually inspired by my first mission trip to Chiang Mai, and I had a really long burnout, so I actually didn't paint it in 2024 when I had my mission trip. I saved it till 2025, where I was still struggling with not only my faith, but also my art career. And I decided to paint this out to fulfill my promise of painting this vision. It was during a session of praise where we were all just speaking and singing praise, the song, in our own native tongues, English and in Thai, and it was just so powerful. I closed my eyes and I saw this imagery of just warmth and just me inside that warmth, praying and praising Him, no matter what the season of my life was. So this was a depiction of the Chiang Mai trees I saw during the mission trip and the colors that I experienced. This was the little figure I saw myself in, surrounded by this entire blankness and negative space. In our retreat camp, we actually had a lot of fairy lights, and I was really surrounded by that atmosphere, and I wanted to capture that, showing all the fairy lights actually just slanted across here. These are the tree roots that I saw, and I wanted to depict the highs and lows of our lives that would always follow us, but would always stay constant with God. You might be wondering, where's the metal on this canvas? It's actually these 4 metal wire rings to represent the 4 seasons, to represent that even in every season is still praise, and it's still surrounded by Him and His grace. Let me just start this out by saying the lighting does not do this painting justice, so you will have another clip of this painting. This piece is called Still in His Hands. In 2025, I created this a few months before the exhibition started, and it is oil on canvas. It is 50 times 40 centimeters. This was inspired by the story of Jacob wrestling with God in the Old Testament in the book of Exodus, and it was a piece where I felt very deeply close to my heart and very personal. And this is actually my current favorite artwork that I've ever created, and it was inspired by just the wrestle with God and the wrestle with ourselves. And I heard this phrase a while ago that it actually inspired this whole painting, and it said, to wrestle with God means that you're still in His hands. I referenced this based on me and my dad wrestling, and we took some pictures of it. During the Jacob's wrestle with God, he was struggling and he still persisted. And when he was wrestling with God, he wrestled till daybreak, seeing that we're still wrestling with God no matter how hard it gets, and that God still held us in His hand. And hidden in the mountains with His crucified hand, nail scar, and the blood flooding through. So this was really a personal touch that I wanted to depict that was really subtle, but right there if you look hard enough. The fight till daybreak was the sun, day breaking through. Even when we were still wrestling with God and wrestling with ourselves, we are still in His hands. Moving on to the last 2 paintings of this exhibition and of the station Wholeness. This is Wear It Like Skin, done in 2025, acrylic on canvas. It is 71 times 50 centimeters, and it is one of the most detailed paintings of this exhibition. It is inspired by Ephesians 6, which is the armor of God, and the armor of God entails a lot of different things, which I won't name for now, but it also captures something very different from the usual armor of God, which actually I engraved the entire life story of Jesus onto the armor, starting from His birth story, from Him calming the waves here, from Him riding the donkey as king and the palm leaves, from Him being the shepherd, and from Him preaching the Sermon on the Mount right here. This is His crucifixion, very simple, and this is the Last Supper, which I realized should be before the crucifixion, but you know, artistic choice. The multiplication of the 5,000, and this is also the Holy Communion combined with this. This is His crown of thorns as a wrist, and here is His nail-scarred crucifixion hand right here. Here is also the resurrection, which is the empty tomb, shining out from here, the sword of the Spirit, and in here I have written in Hebrew the translation of truth on the sword. So if you actually put Google Translate Hebrew to English, it will actually say truth, which is a really cool detail. Here is a depiction of actually the bleeding woman, which I just talked about. There is Jesus' baptism, the Holy Spirit, and the coming of the Holy Spirit anointment on the apostles right here. And as usual, I love to add wings right here. I added this hand without the gauntlet because I wanted to show that it was truly like skin. Wearing the armor of God, that doesn't necessarily mean equipping a heavy weight on ourselves every day, but it just means to integrate it into our lives, like how our skin is just naturally with us all the time. So just wear it like skin. This is the final painting of this exhibition tour. It is called The 3 Days. It was done in 2023. It is mixed media on canvas, and it was a live painting for 2 Easter sermons for Island ECC youth. It is 78 times 60 centimeters. This was done in 4 hours, as I said, because it was a live painting event. So I actually had to rush through this a lot. It was a depiction of the literal 3 days that happened over the most important days of history, which was Jesus' crucifixion, and I used purple to represent His royalty, His robe, and it was His crucifixion all the way to the blood He shed on the cross, and the crown of thorns circling here depicting that he is now risen. These are actually made with modeling paste, so you could actually feel the texture of the tomb, so and so. And the blood of Jesus now washed us clean, as white as snow. Definitely this is not as white as snow. This is actually the tombstone that's rolling away, and all his glory shining through all the dark clouds that we have, all the doubts, all the thoughts, and it just pierces through all of them and diminishes it. This was his nail-scarred hands coming out of the tomb. And yeah, this is basically the 3 days depiction. It was definitely a challenge to paint it in such a short amount of time, but it was also one of my greatest honors to do this for my congregation in the youth ministry, and it definitely connected me with a lot of people, not only through art, but also through faith. This is our merchandise table for this exhibition for you to take pieces of SOZO home with you, literally. This is the book that we made for the exhibition details. This is our SOZO logo, which has the word SOZO in it. All the information of the artworks, if I'm not there to introduce anything. There is also English and Chinese translation. It is made accessible to all the citizens and everyone in Hong Kong. We've also created little Polaroid stands to showcase how the creation of this exhibition came to be, and even the first text message that Paris had sent out to me, inviting me on this journey of a lifetime SOZO. As you can see here on the display table, there is my 100 Emerging Artists of 2025 booklet here, and through this page you can see me and my artwork of the continue in/on changing right here. Able to flip through and just witness the testimony of how God works through art. Bookmarks of the not my time but his painting, this being the touch that saves, this being miracle, this is wear it like skin, this is more than close, the last one being Rescuer, which is the Lion of Judah depiction. Also have postcards ready, and this is an artwork made by Paris, which means the life is in Jesus. Also turned some of my artworks into postcard sizes. We also collaborated with another Christian artist in Hong Kong called Crystal, and her writing is absolutely beautiful. And this translates to, "Daughter, your faith has healed you." These are some of the other postcards that we have. Also have back pages of English and Chinese translations. And of course, I could never forget about our best-selling stickers, our holographic stickers of my faith-inspired paintings. These are our Chinese leaflets that depict the entire exhibition, plus the artist. Obviously had to include an English version. This leaflet introduces just a brief introduction of all the stations of stories and some of the featured artworks, including the artist and the curator, and some thank you notes. Thank you guys for listening to me yap for I don't even know how long, but this is the end of the artist tour of SOZO, The Art of Healing, an exhibition in Hong Kong. Please come visit if you are in Hong Kong, and if you are in Hong Kong, the link to the venue is linked down below, and the address will be posted right next to me in 3, 2, yep, it's already there. Really hope that you enjoy listening to me talk about my artworks and just being a witness to one of the greatest achievements of my art career till now. Thank you guys so much for supporting me always, and I thank Jesus for gifting me this gift of art to draw others closer to him. If you guys have any questions, concerns, or any inquiries about acquiring one of these beautiful pieces, send me a chat, send me an email, send me a DM, send me a comment down below, and I will get back right to you. 10% of the first week's exhibition revenue will go to help the Hong Kong typo fires. After the first week's 10% revenue has been given to our selected charity towards the typo fires, through the generous support of all our donors and the contributors of this exhibition, and the guests that just come from all around the world to support our goal and passion of art and to making him known. The last 2 weeks of the exhibition, we will be giving back 10% to our selected charity, which is Sons and Daughters. They are a nonprofit organization in Hong Kong, which helps to see freedom, love, and light to the marginalized society affected by sexual trafficking and exploitation in the red light districts of Hong Kong. Once again, we just want to thank you, all the donors, all the contributors, and all our friends and family who have come to support this exhibition. Thank you for all those who also came without even knowing who I was and just wanting to see the beautiful artwork here displayed. Thank you so much for your heart to support the arts in Hong Kong, and thank you so much for just taking your time to witness my journey as a creative. God bless you. We'll see you hopefully next year.